Good afternoon to everybody. B'dikas Chametz Leil Yudal B'Nisan is just a few hours away. I wanted to share some thoughts with you, especially in line with our motto for this Pesach 5780 Tuf Shin Pei, separated but not alone, as it's embossed on the Haggadahs which you have received, and something which we have been thinking about together. Although we are separated, we're unable to daven together, be together, celebrate Yantif together, and join in communal Siddharim as we always do. We need to remember that we are not alone. In reconsidering this catchphrase, which we are continuously focusing on, it dawned upon me that almost 6 months to the date, on Yud Tishrei, Tafshin Pei, Yom Kippur evening, Kol Nidre, I delivered a drasha, which was entitled Alone But Not Lonely. And in that drasha, I discussed many people who feel alone and unable to share their problems, their issues, and are indeed suffering in silence, be it physical, emotional, financial, spiritual. There's so many people who feel at loss at their inability to share their problems and scared almost to share with others what they're going through. And that's one of the most painful things that a human being can suffer, is suffering in solitude, in quarantine, and unable to share or to divulge things that they would wish to share with others. And then we talked about how our responsibility is and should be to care, to look out, to call, to email, to text, and do whatever we can to look out for other people, to engage in conversation, to develop friendships in a way that people feel comfortable, calm, and at ease to share their concerns with us. Who would have imagined a short 5 months later that we would all find ourselves in a very similar situation? All of us on some level in solitude, for some easier, for some harder, for some heavier, for others lighter. But each in our own way are finding the challenges of being alone, and that inability to communicate and to interact, and the connectivity which we so sorely look forward to redeeming is something that we are missing. And at that point, I looked back at my drush and my notes just this morning, and I noted that I quoted a fascinating question that Reb Shapsi Yudalevich, one of the great ancient Magidim of Yerushalayim, asked, and it's so apropos and pertinent as we prepare for the Seder tomorrow evening. Rabbi Yudalevich notes that seemingly the 10 makos, the 10 plagues, which we will commemorate at the Seder, advanced in their level of severity. Dam was light, Tzvardeh was more stringent, Kinim, Arov, Dever, and of course, Makos Bechoros, which took place on Leil Tezvav B'Nisan, on the 15th night of Nisan, tomorrow evening, is the most egregious, the most painful, the most devastating, and of course the most deadly. But it's the 9th Makkah, the Makkah of Choshas, darkness, stillness, which is the Makkah immediately before the 10th Makkah of Makos Bechoros. Why, asks Rabbi Yudalevich, is that the Makkah which precedes Makos Bechoros? And of course it would seem that that is the most painful Makkah outside of Makos Bechoros, if it's the one immediately before it. Rabbi Yudalevich explains that what's so devastating, challenging, and painful about the Makkah of darkness, even more than Dam, Tzvardeh, Kinim, others which took lives and which exhibited pain and suffering upon the Egyptians, was the fact that when the Egyptians suffered in darkness, they suffered by themselves. And not a friend, not a neighbor, not a family member or a colleague was able to help, to look out, to talk. The darkness was so thickening, was so devastating, was so deep, and was so real that there was no emotional, physical help that anybody can offer the other. And thus Rabbi Yudalevich explains that the pain of suffering in silence, the inability to help somebody else, to look out for another, to share with somebody else when you're in pain, that is the most difficult Makkah, and it's just before the 10th Makkah, the Makkah of Makos Bechoros, the loss of life of the firstborn. And I think for each of us in our own way, we read, we see, we feel, we experience that on some level now. That inability to connect, to walk, to talk, to speak, to congregate as we ordinarily do, is something which is indeed trying and certainly most difficult. But as I contemplated that drasha, and I thought about it again, I noted that it's not just the Makkah of Choshech, which was a level of loneliness, but the last Makkah, the Makkah of Makos Bechoros, also had an element of loneliness to it as well. The pasuk tells us in Parshas Bo that the Jewish people were commanded by God on that evening, tomorrow night, Leil Tes Vav B'Nisan, V'atem lo seitzu ish mi Pesach beiso ad boker. Don't leave your home, God told the Jewish people while the Makkah of Bechoros was taking place. There was a Magefa, there was a terrible plague which was taking place, and all Jews were told, remain inside. And it's on that night when we celebrate the Seder. It's on that night when we eat the matzah, the maror, the charoses, and the dalet kosos. And the first time we celebrated our taste of freedom in Egypt, we were told to be behind our walls, inside our homes, unable to celebrate in the streets and to celebrate with each other. And yes, indeed, some 3,000 years later, the same thing will be happening tomorrow night. We also will be celebrating by ourselves, whether it's one person, two people, three people, or five people, whoever and how many members of your household there are. We will be imitating and will be commemorating the Seder and the law and the Exodus from Egypt the same exact way that it took place then. Ish mi Pesach beiso ad boker lo seitzu. Nobody left their home. And bayamim hahem bazman hazeh. A dear congregant shared with me, Reb David Cohn, the great Rav in Brooklyn, noted that just a few psukim earlier, the pasuk reads as follows. Al tochlu mimenu na, don't eat the korban pesach raw. Al matzos umrorim yochluhu, you will eat the korban pesach with matzah and morim yochluhu. And if you take a look in the Balaturim Hasholim notes that there are only 4 times in all of Tanakh that the word yochluhu is used, which means to eat. Once here in Parshas Bo regarding the eating of the korban pesach, a second time in Parshas Ba'aloscha, again in reference to the Korban Pesach, which was eaten in the Midbar. The pasuk also says Yochluhu. And then a third time in Parshas Shmini, in Sefer Vayikra, when Aaron Ubanov Yochluhu, they will eat the Korbanos, the Miluim, when the Beis HaMekdash was being established, when the Mishkan was being established. But then the Baal HaTurim notes that there's a fourth time. It's a pasuk in Yeshaya, Perek Samech Beis, pasuk test. The Torah reports, and the prophet in Yeshayahu tells us, Me'osfav yochlu, those who will be ingathered will eat, and explains the Baal HaTurim that in each of these circumstances we connect the fact that Ish mi Pesach Beisu al Teitzeu, you will not leave your home. You will not leave your home when you eat the Korban Pesach. You will not eat the Ohel Moed, leave the Ohel Moed when Aaron and his sons ate. And so too will be in the future in the final Geula. In the language of the Baal HaTurim, Iskish Geula Achrona Legula Rishona. We connect and we correlate the first Exodus in Egypt, Yetzias Mitzrayim Leil Tes Vav B'Nisan, with the final Geula, with the ultimate redemption. May it be soon B'Nisan Nigalu B'Nisan Asidim Ligael. And just like the first Yetzias Mitzrayim, the first redemption that the Jewish people celebrated, it was at a time when we were unable to leave our homes. So too the same thing will happen with the Gula Achrona, the final redemption. May it be this year. That also, says the Baal HaTurim, Ish mi Pesach Beiso al Yetzu, is referencing the Navi Yeshaya and the prophecy, Me'osvav Yochluhu. We are living in dramatic, unpredictable, startling times. But yes, maybe, the fact that we are locked down, the fact that we are quarantined on some level is allowing us to reminisce, to contemplate, to consider, and to relive that Korban Pesach and that Leil Tes Vav B'Nisan just like it was then. And our tefillah, and our hope, and our prayers that HaKadosh Baruch Hu sees to it that just like the first time that was true, Ish mi Pesach Beiso al Yetzu, it should also be true this year as well. But there's a deeper context to the Seder that we'll be celebrating tomorrow evening as well, as the pasuk tells us in Parshas Bo. Tomorrow night is a Leil Shimurim, a night of protection. If you're on your own, if you're with just your family, there's absolute protection, Lidorosam, as the pasuk says, for generations. This will be a night that will be taken care of. Every Jew is given that guarantee and that promise, Lidorosam, forever and forever. One of the great Magidim today in Yerushalayim, Rabbi Elimelech Biderman, quotes a drasha of the late and the great student Rabbi Akiva Eger, Rabbi Elio Gutmacher. In the early 1830s, was a rabbi in Poland, and he himself was the one who sent it to question to Rabbi Akiva Eger how to handle the cholera epidemic of the early 1830s. And it was Rabbi Elio Gutmacher who gave a drasha on Shabbos HaGadol. And in that drush on Shabbos Hagadol that he gave, he rewrote the drush on Motzei Shabbos and asked that it be disseminated amongst all of Israel. And he asked two questions. And listen closely to the two questions that Rabbi Guttmacher asks, and feel and listen how correlated and closely connected it is to our circumstances today. Rabbi Guttmacher asks that if you take a look in the Megillas Esther, which we read just about a month ago, we all read and we noted that Esther in Perek Daled made a decree, and she told Klal Yisrael, Tzumu alai, fast. And when did that fast take place? Of course, as Chazal note, it was Leil HaSeder, Pesach, 3-day fast, which took place over the holiday of Yom Tif of Pesach. Asks Rav Guttmacher. We all know the Navi tells us, the Megillah tells us, the end of the 8th chapter, that it wasn't going to be until about another 11 months later when the decree of Haman was going to go into place. Couldn't Esther Amalka wait to decree that fast sometime later? Was it Dafka on Leil HaPesach when there's a commandment to eat matzah and the Daled Kosos? That's the night to fast, and those are the days to fast. Isn't it Yontif? And second, asks Rabbi Guttmacher, maybe wait till Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. That's the most opportune time, the most appropriate time to fast. And that's when the gates of heaven are open, Shari Shemayim and Niftachim. Why wait now and have the fast on Pesach specifically? And Rabbi Guttmacher explains and he says that since Pesach is the Leil Shimurim, it's the night of guarantees. It's the night when HaKadosh Baruch Hu is close to us. It's the evening when HaKadosh Baruch Hu is listening to the way we recount, recall, retell the Exodus and the story. It's that night specifically where there's a greater protection by HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and as opposed to Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, where the days that we stave off decrees for the coming year, Leil Shimurim is an evening where decrees can be annulled. Decrees which were established on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur were signed, sealed, and delivered. On Rosh Hashanah we have the ability to uproot them and to annul them. And thus was Dafka Leil Shimurim, Tezvav B'Nisan, tomorrow night, Seder Eve, that Esther chose as the evening to establish as a fast day, to guarantee, to hope, and to pray that if Klal Yisrael came together, banded together, in achdus and in unison, and if we were mispala and if we fasted, then that evil decree of Haman would indeed be abolished. So yes, just like the first Yetzias Mitzrayim, when we ish mi Pesach beisu al teitzu, we were unable to leave. We ask and we pray and we ask HaKadosh Baruch Hu that today and this evening and Leil Tesvav the same thing should come true. And just like Esther fasted and davened for us on that Leil Shimurim, we have to tap into the holiness, the sanctity, the power and the charge of Leil HaSeder, and come together although we were alone, and never ever are any Jew left alone. Yes, we're separated, and maybe our houses are dividing us, and we're unable to come together as we ordinarily do. Yes, we're separated, but of course we're not alone. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is with us. Our friends and our neighbors with us. Let's continue to look out for everybody the same way we've been looking out for each other so far. How proud we should be of our community, which has stuck together in this difficult time. People are receiving food that they need. Deliveries are being made. Shopping lists are being prepared. I hope and I believe that there's nobody in our community that feels alone. We have been checking in with each other. We've been looking out for each other, friends and family alike. People hopefully have what they need, and they should certainly be in touch if they don't feel that they have what they need at this point. We have to look out, and if you have an opportunity to continue to call, to continue to email, to continue to text others before Yontif. And if you're walking on Yontif, maybe look out for somebody else. Maybe you could knock on somebody's door and step back and wave and look and see how people are doing. Because if we look out for others, we hope and we pray that HaKadosh Baruch Hu will give us His hand. Ubiyadcha agdola b'zruachana tuya, with Hashem's mighty hand, where HaKadosh Baruch Hu will help us, will look out for us. And we pray for the day, we pray for the moment when we're able to be united, and we're able to be together again to celebrate in shul, to celebrate together when the shul will go up and we'll travel to Yerushalayim, we'll be able to say, I remember when. And indeed, this year when we say Lashana Abba Yerushalayim, we should exclaim it with greater enthusiasm, with greater belief, with a greater trust that this is the last year that we'll celebrate the Seder and the Gullus. And Lashana Haba Yerushalayim, together, all of us collectively. It's hard to wish everybody a good Yantif like this, and it's sad that we won't be able to see each other together in shul. But let's recognize, let's concretize, let's know that we are together. Yes, we're separated, but we're not alone. We might be alone, but we're not lonely. We have each other, we have our friends, we have our community, and of course we have a Kadosh Baruch Hu. We hope and we pray that we're zocha to, as the second bracha in the Seder tells us, Shenizke lechol min abzvachim min abzachim asher yagia damam al kir mizbachecha l'ratzon. We wait and we pine for that opportunity to eat the Korban Pesach. And when we're then able to celebrate together, as the Pasuk says in the Balaturim notes, Me osvav yochluhu, we will eat that Korban Pesach. And we ask HaKadosh Baruch Hu to help us, to unite us, to keep us together, to protect us and to look after us, to look after every Jew. And we hope and we pray that in our ability to help others, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will help us as well. Wishing you, your families, parents, siblings, children, and all of Klal Yisrael, a Chakasher v'Sameach, a Yomtiv of Simcha, a Yomtiv of Yeshuos v'Nechamos, and Nisim, by Yamim Hahem, Bazman Hazeh, Chakasher v'Sameach to you all.